When you're starting a business, it's hard because it feels like this, like you're spinning your wheels in mud and not actually going anywhere. Well, there's a big difference between motion and progress. So the question for today is, what's the difference between entrepreneurs who successfully scale their companies and those who give up, quit, or become another statistic? 80% of businesses fail in the first 2 years. If that's venture back or technology, that's more like 90%. And so in order for you to not become a statistic, here's what you need to know. Less than 4% of entrepreneurs ever figure out how to get above $1 million in revenue. So when you don't have revenue, you get stuck on the tarmac or you fail to launch. And revenue is important because if you ever want to become a business owner, experience business ownership, then you need to be able to hire people. And you need revenue in order to hire people. The challenge is most entrepreneurs will never get to experience business ownership. In fact, most entrepreneurs are getting owned by their business. There's a lot of people walking around with fancy business cards, websites, domains who are calling themselves entrepreneurs, but truthfully, they're really just solo practitioners. And so business to them, to those kinds of people, not people watching this channel, it's a lot like finding gold at the end of a rainbow. It's a lot of luck. And the problem is ultimately an identity crisis. Most entrepreneurs are stuck thinking like technicians and have a really hard time evolving into thinking like business owners. And so today we're going to fix that. There's really like 3 types of entrepreneurs that I've come across after talking to hundreds of entrepreneurs on my podcast, throughout my career in marketing and technology, throughout my career in consulting. And really you have 3 kinds. You have solopreneurs. Those are people who are sole practitioners. They essentially just work for themselves. They like to call themselves entrepreneurs, but they're not entrepreneurs. They have glorified jobs. Then you have entrepreneurs. These are the people who are really good with great ideas. They're good at building teams. They're incredibly charismatic. But a lot of people get stuck here. They never move beyond being a lead actor in their own play. And then you have business owners. These are the people who own multiple companies. These are Richard Bransons of the world, where they own multiple billion-dollar companies, or Jack Dorsey's of the world, right? Entrepreneurs who knew how to become business owners. And that's because they think of themselves like builders. They're not growing anything. They're not gardeners. They're very intentional about what they're building and how they're building it. Just like if you were going to build a home, you would follow a blueprint. And there is a blueprint to successfully building your business. Videos will break that down. You can follow the blueprint to build your business. But today we're talking about who you need to become in order to move from a startup to a grow up to a more expansive and mature company. Really, being an entrepreneur and starting a company is like being the guy from M. Night Shyamalan's Split. You have multiple personalities. And here's what your org chart would look like. If you're an army of one who started a company, you're going to be the technician, you're going to be the chief operating officer, the chief growth officer, the CEO, and ultimately the business owner. The problem is most people, like I said, get stuck in the entrepreneur or the solopreneur mindset. And so they kind of toggle between technician and business owner and fail to do everything in between. As a business owner, the only thing that you're entitled to are profits. And so if you're using those profits to line your own pockets and not invest back into the business to get you out of working in the business so that you can spend more time working on the business, then effectively you have a glorified job. You might as well just go do something else and work for somebody else, because the industry average for small to medium-sized business owners in terms of their income is $65,000 a year. There's a lot less stressful ways to make $65,000 a year. Then the CEO would report to the business owner. So kind of like how consulting works, where you're taking your hat off and then working on the next company. That's how it works inside of your business. There are certain CEO things that you need to be doing to build the foundation of the company, like set the vision, build the culture, hire the people, manage the finances, look to the future, set up contracts, manage key relationships. And then you also have to be doing COO things, right? The structural things, people, processes, systems, in order to make your team's life easier so that you can scale. And then you have to be optimizing the business. So just because you're doing something one way doesn't mean that that's the way that you should continue doing it. Or maybe as you grow, the company gets bigger, the way that you used to do it doesn't work anymore. A CGO or chief growth officer is really like the thermostat. If it's too hot, they're going to make it colder. If it's too cold, they're going to make it hotter. And then you're also the technician a lot of times. And I'm talking specifically kind of in the startup world or just getting started in business. You're doing the work, but you're also doing the delivery. We can't neglect the other things that are going to allow us to stop working in the business and start working on the business. And so really scaling a company has less to do with revenue. That's how people think about it. They think about more revenue. And it has a lot more to do with who we become as entrepreneurs. When you start up, you're primarily the technician. You're spending most of your time there. And then eventually as you hand off those and you hire a team behind you and around you, you can kind of move and spend more time in these other functions. So essentially we're climbing our own corporate ladder. And your biggest problem inside of your company isn't revenue. It's actually time. And time is the only thing that ultimately scales inside of an organization. When you first start up, you're going to probably be spending 75% or more of your time doing the actual work. But that doesn't mean you don't spend time doing operational things or growth things or CEO things. And really at that point, you don't even really get to benefit from business ownership because like I said, you're only entitled to profits. So you're really just paying yourself for the work that you're doing and trying to set up the future by reinvesting as the business owner back into the business so that you can hire more people and move from a startup to a grow up. And when you become a grow up company, you're probably doing less than half of the work. You're still doing some work, but you're now spending more time on building people, processes, and systems as the COO, the Chief Operational Officer, the structural engineer inside of the business. And this is where most entrepreneurs get stuck. They don't ever mature beyond being a lead actor in their own play. So solopreneurs get stuck being perma technicians. Entrepreneurs get stuck being perma growth companies. They're really strong, really charismatic, but they're still involved in every single decision. They're still making every single decision. They want to have their hands in everything. They're doing the selling, they're doing the marketing, they're the face of the brand. They're benefiting from the most revenue, but they're not delaying gratification and reinvesting that capital back into more people, processes, and systems so that they can become a more expansive company. When you become an expansive company, you're actually not doing much of the day-to-day work. Instead, you're moving into more of an upper-level management type of function within the company, and you're supporting everybody around you. So you're no longer the lead actor. You're actually the strongest supporting cast. And then finally, you really get to experience business ownership when you have a more mature company. You have a mid-level management team, you have directors, you have technicians, and you get to just be the CEO. And at this juncture in the business, you're really starting to feel the benefits of net profits inside of the organization. You're doing less of the day-to-day functional, structural things and more of the strategic, big vision, $100,000 an hour, $1 million an hour type of decision making. So the path to scaling is really built on the back of a couple things. First and foremost, it's talent. So scaling isn't just about going vertical, it's also about going horizontal. And the first form of scaling is horizontal scaling, which means you need to be hiring people and a team around you to backfill your weaknesses and ultimately do more of the technical work so that you can be freed up to work more on the business and less in the business. And then next, what's going to help you move into a more growth type company is building processes and systems. These are the things that allow your team to work more efficiently. This is technology that supports them and it allows each successive person who comes into the organization to more quickly get up to speed and be an active contributor to revenue, which is obviously what we're in the business for. Once you have people, processes, and systems, now you can start to scale vertically. Now we're talking about speed. Now we're talking about more profits. Now we're talking about fixing our costs and actually scaling our top line revenue, which makes us more profitable. Scale is about becoming more profitable over time. It's not necessarily about increasing your expenses and your revenue at the same time. Now we can start to focus on our margins, optimize, become more profitable. And that's truly when we achieve scale, right? That's where we have a consistent process, a consistent company that's printing cash. Then we can move into the seat of actually air traffic control, right? Of actually being a CEO or a business owner where we're tinkering and optimizing and making sure all the planes are landing properly around us, but we're not necessarily flying the plane. And when we get to that point, that's when we have options, and options are ultimately a good thing. Remember, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you're building an asset. And you want to, at some point in the future, either license, franchise, sell, acquire, or maybe just hire a CEO and cash flow the business in perpetuity. But if you're not thinking with the end in mind, then you're just going to end up with a glorified job. So we'll wrap with this. At the end of the day, it's not about growing a business. It's about who you grow into as an entrepreneur. The more quickly that you can move from being the technician to being the CEO of your own company by hiring people, building processes and systems around you, the more quickly you can experience the joy of business ownership. And if you don't want to become another statistic, then delay your gratification and reinvest back into the talent, the processes, and the systems around you.